And welcome to the Moriah Nightly News on this Wednesday evening. Tech issues and all with, for some reason, this microphone is dropping midstream. In any event, from the nation to Moriah, here are tonight's top stories. Just before coming on air tonight, the president announced the signing of the peace agreement to end the Iran war, that MOU that had been in the works for the last couple of weeks. The document was electronically signed as the president is over in France for the G7 summit. It was thought to have taken place, or to be taking place, this Friday in Switzerland. And at this point, it is not clear if that will take place. A 60-day agreement or framework to negotiate a more permanent arrangement. At minimum, Iran must dilute its current supply of uranium. That's usually enriched material used to make weaponry there, though they have claimed in the past that it was for peaceful purposes. There was no guarantee from the president that the U.S. would go in and get that material. If you recall, that had been a point of contention, that the president wanted the U.S. to obtain it rather than having a third party nation like Russia or China do that. But at this point, it looks like it may remain there. And the controversial sticking point of this agreement is the amount of economic relief that it provides to Iran, giving them economic relief up front with the ability to sell oil to key players, by the way, like Russia and China, of course. China had been one of the, if not the primary backer of Iranian oil. They had been facing some shortages because of it, but they will start buying and that money will start flowing in. There are also talks of sanction relief depending upon how Iran cooperates with this arrangement. The money is harbored in Iraq, Qatar, and China in various, be they financial or banking systems. How that money would get there isn't quite clear, but in any case, it's interesting to note that, as I had stated earlier, that there was more at play here than just the Middle East. Even on the Republican side, those like Lindsey Graham were showing skepticism about this negotiation and not wanting the president to get duped or have the country in a bad situation. And the question over whether this would allow Iran to rebuild and whether or not the U.S. had achieved their goals in the conflict. If nothing else, it will leave Iran with the feeling of being emboldened, with the ability to outlast the United States and Israel in conflict. The strategy to hunker down and wait until they left, or wait until they went home, paid off for them, as the Wall Street Journal noted today. The problem is that they are not a Western nation with a Western mentality. They are a radical Islamic republic with the mindset of deceiving the infidel, whom they regard as totally inferior to them in their religious system of belief. The variable in this will be how Israel will respond in the conflict with Lebanon. That there were preliminary provisions in the agreement made to dial down the conflict there, but there were some concerns in the last couple of days that could have almost potentially caused the agreement to fall apart, with Iran wanting more cooperation in that conflict, and Israel, of course, needing to protect its interests there. So, what will happen there may be the wild card to watch in the weeks ahead for how this plays out. In any case, the call to pray still remains. Here at home, the top story that we had been covering was the renewable energy projects here in our region and that in Ticonderoga. The Adirondack Park Agency has not, as of yet, returned my request for inquiry about either the solar panels or the battery energy storage unit systems projects that's being proposed in Ticonderoga. And that to me is very telling for their agenda, that if they cannot answer a basic media inquiry up front and I sent that well over a week ago, probably close to 2 weeks ago now, that the email was sent out to their representative. They did respond by phone when they found out I was with the media. They did not want to answer it, because when I sent the email in response, they have not answered, and if they were not lying, they would have nothing to hide. That being said, they have, as recently as 2024, it was I discovered in preparation for this editorial piece, been investigated for allegations of not only fraud and corruption, but also internal fighting, or shall we say, or internal intimidation tactics against employees. The Adirondack Explorer was the one that was reporting the most on this as it was happening over the last couple of years, although North Country Public Radio and a couple of other outlets picked it up. But this was against, let me see if I can get her name here, Barbara Rice, who is the APA's executive director, allegations that, so about 20 out of 47 employees in a letter said that she cultivated a culture of fear in the organization, and with hurtful behavior and all kinds of allegations of mismanagement, allegations of retaliation, that those who objected to the APA's moving of their headquarters from where it is now in Raybrook to Saranac Lake were retaliated against and were not given advancement or anything like that. By the way, if they had done that in a private company, I guarantee you she would have been fired. I know that, working in the private sector. So the current, this was investigated by the New York State Inspector General. I wrote IG there. I had to remember what the IG stood for. The Inspector General, Lucy Lenny, who, by the way, is a Democrat local appointed official. So if that tells you anything, with a progressive judicial philosophy, and thus, as you could imagine, because of that, was found that the allegations were found to be unsubstantiated, was the exact words used. This was reported again by the North Country Public Radio, and the APA documents themselves that I looked at noted that they were not found to be credible. And so, but the most noteworthy reason why I question the decision of this woman's this inspector general, is the way it was worded in the documents from the inspector general's report, saying that with regard to retaliation, the retaliation that I mentioned to you against her employees who didn't support the move to Saranac Lake. Remember, I said that those who did not support the move to Saranac Lake were more or less retaliated, or you could say use the word discriminated against. Her response was that it was within her management discretion to act in that manner. So apparently, you can break the law if you know the right person. And that is what that looks like by the wording of that report. That is not me trying to be overly critical, but just to say that the language in the report is enough to tell you what you need to know. All of the officials on the APA board, by the way, for those of you who don't know, are appointed by Her Majesty Governor Hochul. She appoints all of them. That is apparently for whatever reason, even though they get to dictate what is done over our lives up here in this region, but we don't get a say in that process at all directly. By this wicked woman in Albany is the one who decides that. 5 of them have to be residents of the park, and to my knowledge, from what it looked like, the one lives in Essex County and Hamilton County and a few of the other counties here in the park. But there is no direct election of these people or involvement by the people that actually live here and are governed by the policies that they enact. So what sense that makes? It's instead people that live outside the area and know nothing of the culture of the region. With that being said, it is election season, and many of you do not know or are unaware that our governor is up for re-election. And I cite that again because after the report we had on Monday, and talking to some folks around the area, most people are not even aware that Kathy Hochul is up for re-election. And regardless of your opinion of the governor, in a democracy, that is rather sad to not know that. So, in the interest of promoting an informed citizenry, yes, the New York State governor is up for election this year in 2026, with Bruce Blakeman being the presumptive GOP frontrunner. There is the primary that will be held on June 23rd. To my knowledge, from what I could find, there was or is no one running against him in that primary. But certainly, if I find anything, I will correct that piece of information. There was not, again, in my searching for the information that I'm about to share with you, I did not see anyone on the ticket against him for the GOP primary. Unlike our congressional seat, which does have a race for the primary on both sides, this one did not show anything front. In any case, Bruce Blakeman is, at least socially, promotes a pro-choice platform, though he did vote against women playing in men's sports or vice versa. So I'll take what I can get there. But what is interesting is for the energy debate that is rocking New York State, he is advocating the lifting the ban on hydrofracking in New York State. This would primarily affect those in the southern tier, what appears to be, from what I could research, along the New York Pennsylvania border, as it appears that Pennsylvania has already been doing this to combat their energy crisis down there. Now, what I have did not look too far into would be, of course, there are environmental questions with hydrofracking as well. So I don't want to ignore those. But in any case, he is advocating for that as part of his platform for election, citing, of course, that that would bring down energy costs and promote the economy as well with jobs in that sector. But there would still be some level of environmental concern for the communities, to my knowledge. But he is running, and as I had stated on Monday, I believe it was Monday that I ran that piece, the broadcasts run together, that he had closed the numbers over the spring, and from winter to spring with that poll, he had been closing the gap on Hochul, and he is, as of June, the beginning of June, about a week or so ago, it was announced that a new super PAC has been formed to help fund his campaign, with Hochul having outpaced him in funding, about 16 times more money that she has in her coffers than he does. So that is a substantial disadvantage in terms of funding for Blakeman. And recall that here in New York State, we have not had a GOP or Republican, if you will, those are interchangeable terms there. We have not had a Republican governor in New York State since Governor Pataki in what was it? Well, 1995 to 2006, I believe, was when he was in office. Yes, those were the dates. It was when he was in office. I was looking that up the other day. And so that's about 20 years that we have been under Democratic rule. So with that, I hope that you will vote this election year, regardless of political party, take part in the process. Here in our area tomorrow is the Moriah Town Board meeting. Of course, the footage for Ticonderoga from last week, I apologize to you for not putting that up yet. That is still coming. I'm still trying to work through the pieces of footage. The pieces of footage that we have in segments from the way that it came out on the card, and trying to put that into one block, if you will, if that makes sense, and then put that onto Facebook. And our Ticonderoga correspondent, Lori Messing, does have that on her Facebook page for anyone who is interested. It is there for now, but it will be out on the main page soon. And tomorrow in Moriah is the town board meeting here. I did confirm that on the town of Moriah's website that it is the third Thursday of the month. And doing the math, though I am a history major, so math is often difficult, it is tomorrow. It is tomorrow, the third Thursday of June. So I will be there to get the footage from that and ask any questions about the some of the projects going on around the area. So with that, we will wrap it up here. Also, don't forget that for those of you in the area, we are close to graduation. And so I know that Mariah's graduation is next Friday, a week from Friday. already. And so, wishing our, on a positive note, ending on a non political note for the evening, wishing all of our graduating seniors here in Moriah, Crown Point, Ticonderoga, and to our north in Boquet Valley, wishing all of our graduating seniors all the best in their future endeavors. So that is the Moriah Nightly News for this Wednesday evening. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and like, subscribe, and share, and all that good stuff. And we are, of course, on all of the major podcasting platforms as well. So that is the Moriah Nightly News for tonight, and we will see you back here on Friday.